Since the peak of the Great Society, on the first official Earth Day, captains of industry have engaged in a conspiracy to destroy the gains made for working people over the last century. These plans were laid out in the Powell Memo, which, in addition to naming Ralph Nader as one of the most dangerous men in America, declared that a 30-year plan should be set in motion that seeks to place corporations and the wealthy elite that head them firmly into positions of power within government, and to remove the ability of the people to use government as an independent arbiter of law that would protect them against the abuses of the wealthy elite, and to stem the tide of citizen power that had grown throughout the 50s and 60s. The strategy laid out in the Powell Memo is coming to its final fruition now. Looking back through history, in feudal times, nobility were educated in music, science, arts, affairs of state, and peasants were simply there to toil in the fields and provide bounty for the nobility through their labor. Education of the working class outside of their particular field of labor was not valued by nobility. Today, we see everything that prevents us from backsliding into some sort of feudalistic society is currently under a very calculated attack in the form of a manufactured crisis called austerity. Here in Maine, at my alma mater, the University of Southern Maine, this austerity agenda has long been shoved down the throats of students, faculty, and staff alike. While I was a student from 2001 through 2010, I was a first-hand witness to the same conditions happening now. To set the scene, USM, like most public universities in the United States, was seeing annual tuition hikes while simultaneously cutting faculty and staff, fighting back against staff unionization. Post 9/11, Democrats were obsessed with being the party of fiscal responsibility in order to win some sort of imaginary political messaging game against Republicans, despite the Democrats holding control over all three branches of government in Maine. Our fiscally responsible Democrats oversaw the giving away of tax dollars to businesses under the pretext of jobs and growth. This loss of revenue, with the addition of accounting errors in the Department of Health and Human Services, led to a budget shortfall, which, rather than addressing this budget shortfall through minor restructuring of Maine's basically flat income tax brackets, Democrats instead led the charge to use the University of Maine System Fund as their own personal piggy bank. This caused a budget shortfall within the UMaine system, which trickled down to the University of Southern Maine in the form of department consolidation, laid off faculty, and reduced staff. When the USM Student Senate became concerned about how tuition was steadily rising while faculty and departments were being cut, we used student activity fee money, which was normally used for planning things like 80s night dance parties and buying pizza, to pay for an independent audit of the University of Maine system. That is when we discovered that while tuition was rising, so were the salaries of administrators, creeping ever closer to the realm of the 1%. We learned that, despite the growing ratio of students to professors in the classroom, there were fewer than 4 faculty for every 1 administrator. We discovered that half of the tuition dollars paid to USM went to our flagship campus that had nearly half the enrollment. We learned that one of the biggest costs for the university system was paying for healthcare benefits for its faculty and staff, a problem that single-payer healthcare would eliminate by removing this entire line item from the university's balance sheet. We tried to mobilize students, only to discover that they did not care. They were here to get a diploma and get into the workforce, and many assumed that they would be gone in 4 years or less, and that since cuts were not happening to their particular major, it did not affect them. Cuts moved forward without much organized or vocal opposition from students or faculty. Post-2011, Occupy Wall Street had happened. Faculty and students alike were present in Zuccotti Park and even made trips between Portland, Maine and New York City together. Professors from USM collaborated with Occupy Wall Street activists in writing the Debt Resisters Handbook and provided broader contextual illumination to systemic issues in several of OWS's working groups. After Zuccotti had been cleared by police, these connections remained in Occupy USM, which continued on through 2012. A concerted effort was made by student activists to build solidarity between students and faculty to illustrate this shared struggle. The University of Southern Maine was now facing deeper cuts as part of a restructuring program set forth by a corporate hatchet woman who had previously worked in the private sector doing the same sort of thing as Mitt Romney did at Bain Capital, and had recently taken the helm as the president of the University of Southern Maine. For this round of cuts and consolidations, a solidarity between students and faculty had been well established and grew and flourished under the recognition that we had shared goals in preserving the University of Maine system, not only for professors' jobs or for students' quality of education, but for the broader benefit to society that a liberal arts education provides, in allowing all working-class people to lift themselves up into an intellectual realm that had, until only recently in human history, been reserved for priests and nobility. A vote of no confidence was issued forth from the faculty senate, and Selma Botman resigned, only to be replaced by President Theo Calico, who has continued forth advancing the austerity agenda on the University of Southern Maine. Selma Botman, while vacating the seat of the president, was allowed by administrators to continue to draw her salary for the duration of her term, and was in fact hired back as a paid consultant, paid an additional $300,000 to write a paper, putting her annual earnings well into the realm of the top 1%. As though to thumb their nose at student protesters, administrators, in addition, gave themselves a raise of as much as $20,000 a year. This year, the university system is facing these same cuts system-wide, but finally, the civic immune response has been triggered, and many isolated fingers involved in this movement, students, faculty, staff, alumni like myself, and even members of the surrounding community, all broken easily on their own, are joining together to form a fist of solidarity and are fighting back.